Battle of the Bastards in Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 9 is one of the elements of the later seasons of Game of Thrones that is more fondly remembered. For me, Season 6 was when the decline in quality of the writing became more obvious. However, entertaining spectacles such as the Battle of the Bastards helped mask those serious issues somewhat at this point in time. If there is something Game of Thrones always tended to do well, it was large-scale set pieces, which were for the most part executed very well visually, with some of the best of the show being these set pieces. I like the Battle of the Bastards. It's not my favourite battle in the show. For me, that's the battle for the wall in Season 4, but it is a good battle. Unfortunately for the Battle of the Bastards, the poor writing in the setup does detract slightly from it. Mainly the issues surrounding Sansa and the Knights of the Vale, and the whole implication on the battle as a whole, and the wider story. By this point, Game of Thrones had moved past the book. For book fans, we were in uncharted waters by this point. Hence why I think the show was able to keep the attention of book readers for so long, even with the decline in the quality of the writing. Regardless, the battle has proven to be one of the more popular parts of the show, often cited and recalled by a lot of casual viewers and mainstream media sources. All of this got me thinking about how much of the show, post-season 5, when they ran out of book content, will actually be part of Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring, should those books ever come out. We know George R. R. Martin confirmed several big plot twists to the showrunners that take place in the books, and we know what those plot twists were. And from what I understand, the Battle of the Bastards was not one of them. But this did lead me to thinking, will the Battle of the Bastards, which plays such a huge role in the show, also happen in the book? Especially when the circumstances that allow for it to happen are very different in the show versus the book. When I began my research, I had this preconceived answer that it was a show-only concept, so I was very surprised to find out that this may not be the case, and there may be a chance there is a Battle of the Bastards style event in Winds of Winter. However, I suspect the context and the events themselves would be very different from the show. During my research, I stumbled across an article from 2019 that talks about some of the notes George R. R. Martin left in the scripts for the episodes of Game of Thrones that he wrote personally. In the script for Season 4, Episode 2, the last episode of the show George wrote, he left the following note for showrunners. A note for future reference. A season or two down the line, Ramsay's pack of wolfhounds are going to be sent against the Stark direwolves, so we should build up the dogs as much as possible in this and the subsequent episodes. Now, when you first read that note, it does not scream Battle of the Bastards, at least not like the show handled it. But what it might suggest is there will be some kind of Battle of the Bastards-like event. Something I could see happening is maybe Davos returns with Rickon and Shaggy Dog. Jon heads to Winterfell for reasons, maybe Mance or Stannis related, or could even be because of the pink letter, which could then develop into a battle of sorts. If not that, then maybe just a face-off between Jon and Ramsay, with the focus being on the direwolves fighting Ramsay's wolfhounds. If there is in fact a battle, I can maybe even see a situation where Sansa does turn up with the Knights of the Vale. That, however, would really depend on how her story develops in Winds, but her heading north and using the Knights of the Vale in this way doesn't make a lot more sense than how the show handled that aspect of it. The trouble is with this idea is there is so many changes the show made. I'm not even sure a circumstance in which a large-scale battle needs to happen to the same degree it did in the show. Sansa is not at Winterfell married to Ramsay, and the book version of Jane Paul being fake Arya has her heading towards the wall with Theon. We then have Sansa in the Vale, very much doing her own thing. I do see it being possible her story intersects with this proposed event, but overall she would have a very different role than her show counterpart. You also have to factor in the Battle of Ice is yet to happen in the book, so we don't really know what happens to Stannis, and his fate could be very different to that shown in Game of Thrones. And Ramsay, while important to the story, is not yet even really the main antagonist for the North at this point, as Roose Bolton is still very much alive. So given that no matter what, by the time we get to any proposed Battle of the Bastards style event, given how different the books are at this point, is there even a place for it, given what we know about where the story is in terms of the end of A Dance with Dragons, and the little we do know about the Winds of Winter thanks to the sample chapters? Well, first off, this note in a script would have been written a long time ago now, given it was a script from Season 4 I would maybe hazard a guess it was written around 2013. So that would have been right around when George claims he began working on the Winds of Winter in earnest. It's really hard to believe that this was 10 years ago and we still don't have winds, but what this can tell us is information on events such as this proposed direwolf battle with Ramsay's hounds would be in the forefront of George's mind. Ultimately, given how the show diverged from the book, it does raise many questions that are vital in the setup of a Battle of the Bastards. For example, whether Stannis will prevail against the Boltons in the Battle of Ice, or if it will ultimately be Jon to defeat them. If Stannis wins the Battle of Ice, why would there be a need for the Battle of the Bastards style event in the books? In the show, we don't actually see Ghost at the Battle of the Bastards, and there is not a fight between the direwolf and Ramsay's hounds. So I suspect by the time the show got to this point, the showrunners decided to scrap that aspect of it, most likely due to the cost of the direwolves. We know Ghost was basically non-existent for most of Season 7 and Season 8 because of this, so it kind of adds up. But maybe George does intend for Ramsay to fight Jon in some way, and therefore his hounds versus Ghost happens in the book, without the need for a huge set-piece battle. It could also have something to do with Shaggy Dog and Rickon, who Davos is currently on a mission to presumably bring to Stannis, who happens to be fighting the Boltons, which to me maybe suggests that the Battle of the Bastards was the show's version of the Battle of Ice in some way. If you really want to get crazy with it, it's time to put on your tinfoil hat for 1 second. Maybe Stannis fakes defeat at the Crofters' village, as the popular fan theory suggests, and Ramsay will believe the news of his demise. Ramsay then sends the pink letter and then heads towards the wall with a host of men and his pack of hounds to take out Jon after apparently comfortably dealing with Stannis. So we get Jon and Ghost and the wildlings versus Ramsay at the wall and Stannis versus Roose at Winterfell. Like I keep coming back to, the situation is so vastly different in the book when compared to the show, it's really difficult to speculate. Something that I do want to point out about the note in the script is George says dire wolves as a plural, meaning more than one wolf. So how would that work in the book given how spread out the direwolves are at this point? The only pair that makes sense is Ghost and Shaggy Dog, which could mean Davos would have to be bringing Rickon to the wall, or maybe Stannis. For me, this note from George reinforces my belief that the books are going to be very different to the show. While the ending may have similar themes and events, everything surrounding it is going to be very different. Does this note mean that the Battle of the Bastards will happen in Winds of Winter? No. But for me, it does indicate some kind of thematically similar events might happen that serves a similar function. What do you guys think? I will leave a link to the article in question in the description. Do you think the Battle of the Bastards will happen, or something like it might happen in the book? What do you think this note by George R. R. Martin means? Let me know in the comments.